From the Times Center in New York City, City University Television, in association with the New York Times, presents a TimesTalks series with editors and writers of the New York Times. Today's presentation, a conversation with Bradley Cooper, Times interviewer Dave Itzkoff.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carol Olson Day of the New York Times, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this exciting TimesTalks. And tonight, we are delighted to have on our stage one of today's most sought-after actors. You know him, of course, from The Hangover, the Golden Globe-winning, highest-grossing R-rated comedy ever. He recently completed production on The Hangover Part 2 for release this May. But he has even more going on right now. Currently, he stars in the new action thriller Limitless, in which he appears opposite Robert De Niro. And Limitless opens this Friday in theaters throughout the US. You'll hear much more about him and about the film from our moderator. A reporter on the culture desk of the New York Times, he is the lead contributor to the must-read ArtSpeak blog on nytimes.com. He is also the author of the book Lads and Cocaine's Son, his unsparingly honest new memoir chronicling the impact of his father's addiction. The book has been called a remarkable story, beautifully told, sad and painful, and funny and hopeful. Please join me in welcoming Dave Itzkoff and our very special guest, Bradley Cooper.
Wow. Hey. How's it going? Oh!
Let's just take questions from the audience. Let's just get right to it.
Yeah, let's get right to it. That guy.
Right. So at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night after a full day of movie promotion, what percentage of your brain are you using right now?
I'm on NZT.
Right.
Did you guys see the movie? Nobody saw it. I know it hasn't come out yet. I'm not that tired. But no, I wasn't sure if there was a screening or something. What did you say? Wait, what?
Are you pirating it already? At least let it open. So, this past weekend you were profiled in a cover story in the Times' Arts and Leisure section, and it sounded like you knew from a very early age what you wanted to be doing for a living. And in fact, a childhood friend of yours told the Times that you used to have sleepovers where you'd stay up and watch Apocalypse Now. So,
Yeah.
Just how old were you at the time?
I was 4. Yeah, that's my buddy Brian Klugman, right? Oh no. Who we used to. Yeah, my father was a huge cinephile, and I lived across the street from a movie theater, and Prism came to our neighborhood. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but there was like HBO and Prism and Rydell, yes, and so Raging Bull was one of the first movies, and so I started to get exposed to all these films like Apocalypse Now and Deer Hunter, and he and I would talk about it all the time, and we had this great idea. We thought it was a great idea to do a night of Vietnam. And it started out, we're going to open it up with Apocalypse Now, and then just ease right into the Deer Hunter, and then finish it up with Hearts of Darkness, which was the documentary that Coppola's wife made of Apocalypse Now. I think there were like 8 people from that we had signed. We had sheets around the high school. We thought it was going to be like a mob scene at my house. It was like 10 people came. And most of them because they thought maybe they heard that maybe we were going to drink some wine or something, like break into the liquor cabinet. And I remember we were like halfway through, we were like in the wedding scene of the Deer Hunter, like not even, a third into the night. Everybody was asleep, except for me and Brian. And we're sitting there like, Kilgore.
Right.
It's so funny.
Did you ever try doing that with a night of Porky's and Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
That would have worked.
Yeah,
no, we didn't do that.
Yeah, might have gotten the crowd you wanted. I mean, who are you watching?
Spinal Tap. We did do that with Spinal Tap.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in high school and you're watching, Apocalypse Now. I mean, are you watching for Martin Sheen, for Duvall, for Dennis Hopper, just?
just for the whole movie, really, you know. But I mean, certainly Duvall, you know, made an impression on me as a guy, as a kid. You know, always trying to do all the lines from the movie, and I just remember the voiceover, Sheen's voiceover, you know. And then, of course, Lawrence Fishburne was 14.
Right.
I think he was 14 when he started and 16 when he wrapped that movie. They shot it for 3 years in the Philippines, or 2.5 years in the Philippines.
I think everybody ages 2 years just watching it.
Yeah, and he wore his battle fatigues for his whole time, for like a year afterwards, when he went back to school. Interesting.
Yeah. So we're not going to dwell on this, I promise. But so after you graduated from Georgetown, so you entered the MFA program at the Actors Studio at the New School, right?
Right, which is now at the Pace University.
Right.
Yeah.
Does every student there do an impression of James Lipton?
I don't.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't. I think Will Ferrell, we leave it up to.
Right. You actually show up in some of the early episodes of Actors Studio. When you were a student there, you went out to ask
Yeah, some of my greatest work. Thank you. Very proud of that work.
We don't have those.
A lot
clips.
of this.
Yeah.
Literally, I look like, it was insane. I just saw an accident or something.
But you did ask questions, right? When De Niro was a guest and when Clint Eastwood was a guest, you asked them.
I never asked Clint Eastwood.
you did?
I was
Okay.
too scared. But I asked De Niro and Sean Penn questions. But I was like a real rebel because I wouldn't say, I'm Bradley. We were supposed to say who we are and what track we were on, which I never understood that track. I didn't know what that meant. And then and what year. And I just couldn't do that. So I would just ask the question. So it never got on air, I think. But yeah, I asked Robert De Niro a question, which was crazy, and then I asked Sean Penn a question.
Do you remember what you asked them?
Oh yeah. I asked Sean Penn, what was it like to revisit a character after a 10-year hiatus?
You just wanted to prove you knew what hiatus.
Yeah, I know. So, and I said like that, hiatus, because he did Hurly Burly. At the time, Hurly Burly had just been released, and he had originated the role. I think he originated the role that David Ray play in New York. So there was a 10-year hiatus. And then Robert De Niro, I asked him, I was so nervous because I had this very specific question I thought everybody would laugh at. And you know, it was in a room like this. And it was about Awakenings, the movie Awakenings, and whether there's a scene where he wants to go for a walk and he's trying to plead his case to the medical board, but the medicine's not working anymore. And his sort of Parkinson-like tics are coming back, and he tries to make up for it by rubbing his eyebrow. And I asked him if he had seen anybody do that in his research for when he had interviewed Parkinson's patients, or if that's something that just happened. And he went, No, I didn't see anybody do that.
Now you just.
That's a good. I'm not done.
Oh, pardon me. Please continue with your anecdote.
The last beat was,
Yeah.
that's a good question.
Right.
Yeah. But then I stood up there like this. After I asked him, I was like this. The same look, just standing. And he, and I forgot to sit down. Yeah. Yeah, it was very embarrassing. I think someone had to tug me down.
I apologize for interrupting, but what I was going to ask is, you just became, I think you're the first alumnus of the Actors Studio to then be featured on the show, is that right?
Yeah.
So does De Niro get to come back and then ask you a long question?
Yeah, that would be funny. No. Yeah. that would have been interesting.
What was that experience like for you, though, to be, on the other side and to be the one, probed like that?
Probed like that? That's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, Lipton does his research, right? I mean, those things are
It
like...
sounds like I'm an alien or something.
They're intensive, right?
Because we all probe aliens, right? That makes no sense what I just said. What was the question?
Oh, so... What was the experience like for you?
Being on stage for that?
Yeah.
Oh, it was, it aired last night. Did anybody see it? Well, I unfortunately cried a lot, and it was very embarrassing. I'm not a good crier, in that I'm loud, and it's not like these things, and I could keep talking.
Right.
So I had to stop a lot. But it was wonderful. I mean, I remember like if this was the stage, I was back there behind the door, and I heard him, Lipton, say, you know, Bradley Cooper, and knowing that I had so many of my friends in the audience that I went to school with, and my parents, and my father was sick at the time, and I just thought, oh no, I knew at that moment that, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it together. And then the whole time, it just turned into this very moving experience. Yeah, much like this. But it really was something. Yeah, I felt very. It was not lost on me that what was occurring. Yeah.
You know, even before you'd finished graduate school, you were already landing, you know, some prominent screen work. You know, just of your earliest
I think I know where this is leading.
Yes. Which of these early gigs would you say was more crucial to your future pursuits? Your time as host of Globe Trekker, or your role on the single and fabulous episode of Sex and the City?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, we're getting to that.
Okay.
We're getting to that.
Both were wonderful because Sex and the City was, it was my first. I was auditioning all the time because I was just putting myself on tape for stuff that I would read in backstage, and then I had a manager when I was still in grad school, so I would go on auditions like 7 a day for pilots, and so by the time Thursday or Friday rolled around, I just had a very full, satisfying week. Never booked anything ever. Literally didn't realize that that's part of the job, is that you actually could maybe get the job. And I still remember when and getting a call back was like, how was your week? I got a call back. It was nuts. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it's like, and then that would be like my code. It's like, I've got like 16, 17 callbacks under my belt. You know what I mean? Like, good for you, man. Right. Yeah. You book anything? No. Right. We're looking, I think maybe 20, 30 callbacks next year, the way I'm headed. You know, maybe some, who knows, maybe a network test.
Right.
But then I got the role in Sex and the City, and I remember I was like, I had to make a transition in my brain to realize that, like, wait, I have to do it? Right. What do you mean I have to do it? And I was a wreck. And then we shot it. Luckily, they were very nice. Michael Patrick King, who went on to direct the movies, was there, I remember. And then another producer, I can't remember his name, was great. And they were very supportive. And Sarah Jessica Parker was just an angel. And it was interesting. Yeah. And then the Globe Trekkers, that was just insane. I don't know how the hell that happened. That was like some weird acid trip I was on for 3 years. Because I grew up in the suburbs of Philly, never was in a tent in my life. And then all of a sudden, it was Lynn Kressel, I think, casting. It was a casting director here in New York, and I don't even know if she still does it. But and it was, you know, the audition was make up a trek and just tell it to the camera. So I made up this trek about that I went to Indonesia in search of the Komodo dragon. Because I remember in The Freshman, right. Matthew Broderick, they have the Komodo dragon. Remember? I was like, that sounds interesting. And I remember like a Komodo dragon can eat a cow in 6 days, it digests it. I don't know. So I started making up all this stuff, and then the callback was in Central Park, and they said, pretend to go on a trek. So I borrowed all my buddies' REI gear and had like a trail mix. And I was eating as I was talking. Because if you have trail mix, you're legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going somewhere. You can survive. And then they were like, okay, go to Canada and pole down the Bonaventure River, cycle the Viking Trail in Newfoundland, and then go kayaking with orca whales in Prince William Sound. Okay.
Right.
And then 3 years later, I was like going to Croatia, sailing the Kornati Islands, and glacier climbing in Peru. I mean, it was
skipped
insane.
over Croatia pretty quickly. We know what happened there.
What happened?
That was the nude beach.
Oh, yeah, that was a nude beach. I still remember that. We were doing this thing where we had to go to this nude beach, and the guy's like, it was an English crew that ran the whole thing, Pilot Productions. I remember they're like, right, Bradley, no, you could take your kid off, right, mate? And I was like, I don't think so. No, look, it's fine. No one's going to see it. And I remember thinking, what if by chance I actually become a working actor? I literally thought that. And this tape's laying around of me just hanging out with this dude naked, just talking for like 20 minutes. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it.
Right.
and I didn't do it.
But
I felt like such a jerk, like I was so presumptuous. You know,
no, but
look, man, I might make a living. He's like, okay.
It is on YouTube, so you did probably make the right call.
Right, yeah.
So did Alias kind of come next, or was Wet Hot American Summer the next?
No, Wet Hot American Summer was.
So I mean, how did you get connected with them at that?
I just auditioned. I got so lucky. I mean, I hit the jackpot with that because I auditioned for the movie. I didn't know anybody, and I was so lucky to be cast. And I still remember we shot that up in Pennsylvania or upstate New York at a summer camp, and we all lived in the infirmary, and it was like being at camp. And I remember the lunchroom when we would have lunch, and that was my favorite part of the whole experience because I had never been around such quick-witted people in my life. I mean, it was like what I would hear about, the Sid Caesar show of shows, where like Woody Allen and everybody, the guy who created MASH, all the writers would be in the stairwell coming up with bits.
Yeah.
That's the way it felt to me in the lunchroom. I mean, these guys were geniuses, what they were doing. And all they were trying to do was make each other laugh.
Were you able to kind of keep pace with
that? No, nothing. No, but I really loved it, and it was my first time. It was the first time that I was exposed to the kind of humor that I thought was funny all the time. I mean, I really thought I had never seen the state. I didn't know about any of these things, and I remember feeling like, oh, I feel kind of like I'm around sort of a kindred. Spirit in a way.
Yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of chances since to prove your comedic chops, but I mean, at that stage of your career, I mean, are there prejudices or presumptions that even you have to overcome about, the kinds of roles that you can play, because of the way that you look?
The way that
you look.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Because handsome people are not necessarily,
That's just racist. I'm
the
sorry.
The funny people.
I will not permit you, sir, to speak to me like that.
The funny people have to become funny because, that's all they've got.
Wow. Where do we begin? Okay. My experience actually has been that I've never been handsome enough to be like the guy, to get that role, and I've never been character-y enough to get like the real character role. So I've actually suffered because I was never either, in a way. I'm not complaining. Like I've been very lucky, but it's true. Like I've definitely heard, excuse my curse, but like I remember auditioning for this movie and I talked to my agent early on and I was like, how did it go? I think it went well. She goes, honestly, they said you're not f***able. And I thought, wow. Did they not see Wet Hot American Summer? But I remember that. That was at the Sundance Film Festival. I remember waiting in line. I was like, okay. What do I do with that bit of information?
How does one become more
f***able?
Yes.
That's a very good question. I just started whoring myself out like crazy. Desperately wanting someone to say.
See, check out these tapes, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the midst of all this, I mean, how did Alias come up? Where did that?
Alias was, one of those. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah.
Met some lifelong friends in that show. Boy, wow. Yeah. That was just one of those 800 auditions a week I went on, and it was for a show called Alias. And they said the big thing was when the creator is coming to town, and whispers would go around the hall because we'd be waiting along the hall like American Idol style to go in on these things. And I remember they're like, I think J.J. Abrams is in the room. And I was like, J.J. who? They're like, Felicity. I was like, I don't know what Felicity is. He wrote Regarding Henry when he was 18. Oh, really? Oh, wow, I like that movie. So then I walk in, and he was there, and I just sort of, I don't know, we like clicked. And I remember he was like, grab the pencil. And we were just doing Will. He wasn't Will Tippin at the time. His name was Clay, was the character's name. And for some reason, I had just done this thing on the show called The Street where I played Clay, but he was like a cokehead. And I was like, and I remember even saying to him, I don't know why I had the balls to say it. I was like, hey man, maybe he's not Clay. Oh, really? Is that what he's not? I wrote the pilot. Oh, you're gonna tell me that he's not Clay? Okay, thanks, guy. But he was very nice. And then they flew me to Los Angeles, and I tested for it, and then I got it, so I stayed out there. But I remember when I got it, they were like, they were testing for that character and the Vaughn character at the same day. So we were all around, and I remember there was this guy, and I thought, this is the coolest guy I've ever met. He was like, he just got back from a snowboarding trip. He had like long hair, handsome as shit, and he was French. And his name was Michael Vartan.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I remember we were outside smoking a cigarette, and we both smoked back then. And he said, he's like, I got to tell you, man. He's like, we both can't get it. We look like brothers. I thought, do we? Do we really? We do, don't we? I thought so too, Michael. I thought the same thing. And then we both wound up getting it, and they're like, and then they're like, look, you guys look too much alike, so I was like, oh, okay, I can wait. Okay, how do you want to do it? They're like, so Michael, you stay exactly the way you look, and then Bradley, we're gonna bleach your hair blonde, curl it up, and you're gonna wear glasses.
I mean, the way that Will was first conceived, was he supposed to be perhaps a little bit more, nebbishy, or a little bit more of the kind
I thought he was a stud,
Yeah.
but I was obviously wrong. I thought that ice cream scene, I thought Sydney was mine. No.
I'm going to nerd out on you for a second, but I mean, do we ever really find out what happened to Will at the end of the series, or do you
Did you guys watch the show at all? Yeah, they tell you.
But I thought the
Yeah, no, he went into witness protection in Wisconsin, then he comes back in like the 100th episode, I think it was, or
Right.
something, and he comes back and what happens?
He's gonna, isn't he?
He helps her out.
Yeah, he's going to get married, but do we ever find out?
Oh, you mean after that? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. So
yeah.
that is a good question. Yeah.
It's a nerd
I'm sorry.
question.
I don't know. I don't know.
okay.
That's you're right. You got me.
Good, we finally got
He went
you.
back to Wisconsin.
Right.
He's in the witness protection
Right.
program. I think he's happy.
Okay. That's all I wanted to hear.
I got
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
I haven't talked to him.
I have closure now.
Oh, you
Thank
do? Oh, good. But it was great to come back. I remember like, leaving, because I almost got killed. Right? Yeah, like evil Francie killed Will Tippin, supposedly, but then they're like, oh, he didn't. And then I remember JJ's like, hey man, do you want to come back for an episode? The fans like you. And I always thought the fans hated my character. Because back then, oh God, I remember back then, you go on the message boards back then,
Yeah.
and it was all still dial-up. So it took forever to download a message. And I'd be sitting there, I remember it was so pathetic, I was like, click. And then you'd get that message. Will Tippin is dirty and he needs to take a bath. And I go, click. Wait for the next one. Checking to see if my girlfriend didn't come back up the stairs because I don't want her to see me on the computer
Right.
looking at my. So when he asked me to come back, I was like, yeah, but can I sleep with Sydney? And he's like, sure. And I was like, and can I kill Evil Francie?
Right.
He's like, okay.
Right.
And then he wrote that. And then we shot it. It was amazing. And Jack Bender directed that episode, who went on to do all the Lost episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Did they ever talk
Lost.
to you
You
at
guys like Lost? Oh my God, best show. I was just in London doing promotion, and Matthew Fox walked by the restaurant. I almost had a heart attack. I was eating. I was like, yeah. I was like, holy shit, that's Matthew Fox. I knew it was him. He was shaved and he had a goatee, but I knew it was him.
Did they ever talk to you about a role on that show, or?
No. No, I wish I would have loved him to have done that.
We want to talk a little bit about
Scottish guy. Remember the Scottish? Anyway, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah. I just love that finale. Was incredible.
I have
Oh
some
my
theories
God.
of my own, but we'll save them for later.
For the finale?
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Let's break this shit down. I can talk about this all night.
No.
You guys don't have to be anywhere, right?
Do people want to talk about Bradley or about the Lost finale? So I actually do want to talk about Wedding Crashers a little bit.
Vince Vaughn in that movie. Oh my God. And Owen. Jesus.
I mean, is it in any way a mixed blessing when you get a role like that, in the sense that when you go opposite those guys, you're not the one going home with Rachel McAdams at the end of that film.
Again, no, right.
Well, you're going to be the foil to them.
Oh, you mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
I was honored. I couldn't believe it. You gotta understand, I was just playing the guy who was saying, hey, how was your trip? Flipping pancakes. thinking that she's a banker.
Right.
to go, the nicest guy in the world, Will Tippin, to all of a sudden playing this sociopathic Sack Lodge. I mean, it was, I still remember that audition. I was playing Johnny Cash's Cocaine Blues, I think is the song, and I was driving there, and I read the script, and I thought, this character's amazing, but I'll never get it, because all the auditions I was going on, people were saying, Bradley's such a nice guy. So nice, really sweet. God, he was so sweet on that show. So sweet on that show. He's not really right for this. There's no edge. And that was what it always was. And so when I got there to play this guy, and David Dobkin, maybe he never saw Alias, I don't know. But I don't know, something just clicked. I remember like pretending to keep cocking the shotgun. Right. I was like this in the room, like with a fake nothing, and I'm like talking to Claire, I'm like this. On tape, like, what am I doing? And he was laughing so hard. I remember he was like on the floor laughing, and he told me in the room, he was like, "You got it, man. You got the role." Wow. And I thought, because sometimes people, they get excited, and you get home and you don't have it. But he did, man. He really did.
That was the thing he said in the room to make you feel better, right?
But he got it. He did, and he stuck by it. And my friend later told me that he was on his way to the audition, and his agent called him and said, "Turn around, they just cast the role." Wow. So he really, I owe a lot to David Dobkin.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I would think, that there could be perhaps perils in when you're a really effective jerk in a role like that. But for you, it was also, it was a way of sort of breaking free of being thought of as the nice guy.
Yeah, it was like stepping out of one box and into another. That's really what happened. Because then it became, oh man, that guy, he's an asshole, right? No, he's like a major asshole. I knew guys like him in high school. And I was like, no, that's what I was playing.
Right. Right. I was just good in the role, that's all.
I don't know, but I did take it as a compliment until but it did actually, in a way, was another thing to, Elia Kazan said, if you're going to play a cowboy, show up with a horse. Right. And it's like, it's that, it was interesting. Yeah.
Did you get to talk Deer Hunter with Walken at all, or were there opportunities for those kinds of interactions?
I still don't know what we were saying to each other. It's like some sort of like algorithmic puzzle. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, no. Walken was like, I remember one day there was something with the weather, and we had to sit. There was lighting or something, and we were sitting there. And Walken always wore these like black pants and suspenders and a wife beater and these shoes that he always wore. And he was just sitting there, and he was like, Bradley, I gotta tell you, Bradley, you gotta live in a big house, Malibu. I'm gonna visit you, Bradley. I was like, okay. You said a big house, but he was great. He was great. And another thing was wonderful about him. He came into my trailer, knocked on my trailer, and wanted to go there. The church scene at the end when we have that sort of face-off. Right. It's like, Sock, I always liked you, and he was like, Brad, let's talk about like how we can do the scene and talk about it. And I was like, oh, okay. And we were like, we like worked on the scene and then pitched it to David in the room. It was really, it was wonderful. Yeah. Did
he ever make good on the promise to visit you, or?
Well, I don't have a big house in Malibu. I'm still waiting for that vision to come true.
Right. So that was 2005. That film was released.
Was it really?
I think so.
Wow.
And then the following year, you got to make your Broadway debut in 3 Days of Rain.
It was the following year?
Is that right? I hope I did my homework.
Well, because I did Kitchen Confidential after that.
Right.
And then that got canceled, and thank you. And then, thanks, Mom. And then that got canceled, and then so in the December, and then we started rehearsals in February, and it ran until June.
Right. I remember that production got attention, right?
That was 2 years later, because I did Jack and Bobby after Wedding Crashers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Mom, you're fast. What are you skirting all around the auditorium?
But so the show,
Jack and Bobby threw you, didn't it?
Yeah. I did not have any Jack and Bobby questions prepared, I'm afraid, but we'll rectify that in editing. We'll sneak one in.
We'll just get rid of Jack and Bobby.
No. But 3 Days of Rain obviously got a tremendous amount of attention for various reasons, one being your co-star.
One reason, really,
Yeah.
Julia Roberts.
I mean, I'm sure you know going in, she's already been cast, and
Oh yeah, everybody was cast but me.
Right.
Yeah. There were 3 people in the 3 actors to play 6 roles, and it's a beautiful play by Richard Greenberg,
Yeah.
and Joe Mantello was directing it. Whew. And who's wonderful but tough. And Julia was cast, and Paul was cast, and I'd worked on Wet Hot American Summer with him. Didn't know him that well, but I loved his work. And then that was a brutal experience in a great way. But I lost 17 pounds, and in rehearsal I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I mean, I really thought I was going to get fired every day. And
just because of the physical demands of doing a show and what's the rigor?
well, that was before the show started. Right. That's during rehearsals. That was just rehearsals.
Right.
Just because, you know, he the way that Richard writes is it's prose, but it almost feels like verse. I mean, there's a musicality, and you have to get on the train, or it's not going to work. And just being with Julia Roberts and Paul Rudd, I mean, what the hell's happening? You know, and there's this one part of the play that in the second act where I have to sing a cappella to her, and I remember one time we were rehearsing, and she had her hands, I was like this, and she has her hands around, holding me, and I'm trying to sing a cappella, and Joe Mantello's right there, and I'm sort of singing, trying to sing a cappella, and she, and he goes like this, I remember he's sitting there, he's like, Bradley, I can't hear you. And I remember I was like, what? And the sweat starts coming down and her cupping in Julia Roberts' hands. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I just remember the sweat just coming down into her hands. And I was like, please, Julia, please take your hands out of my armpits. Thinking that. And then he was like, and I remember he said, Bradley, I can either tell you now, or I could just do it with a megaphone, in the back of a theater, with 1,000 people not be able to hear you. But and he's like, soft choices. What did he say? Yeah, he's like, soft words mean soft choices, Bradley. I thought, you know what? Just fire me. But he was right. He was right, and
he was right to fire you?
No, I didn't get fired. But he was right about the voice is key, especially on a stage. And by the time we got to that first preview, I still remember walking out on that stage, and the first character played Pip, comes out and he's like, "Okay, hey, how you doing? Now it's my turn." And he has this sort of like goes on basically for 35 minutes, doesn't shut up.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was almost like I was entrenched in the stage, and I felt completely comfortable. And I thought, this is nuts. And so from then on, it was enjoyable-ish.
Right. Enough that if the right role and the
Oh no, I would love to do it.
Yeah.
I say ish only because the thing about theater is it's the hardest by far out of the 3 sort of media to be an actor, I think, because it's the art of repetition is theater. Yeah. You have a great show, and then you have to do it all again the next day, and you can't really try to repeat yourself, which that's a whole other thing. When you gotta laugh, and then it was a great learning experience, because I thought I nailed a performance, and then you get there again and you're like, oh, this one's coming, here we go, fastball. How come you guys aren't laughing? You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, I'm trying, and then there were whole performances where I was just acting with the audience. I mean, I literally, all I was doing was trying to elicit a response. Forget Julian Paul. It was really, and I thought, oh, I didn't talk to anybody that whole play except for the audience. You really learn very quickly whether you're listening or not.
Right. So you'd done comedy, you'd done drama, you'd done cinema, television, Broadway. Then you said to yourself, what I really need on my resume is a movie where Zach Galifianakis pretends to masturbate a baby.
Exactly like that.
Yes, excellent.
That's exactly
that was
the sequence of events.
It was a wild guess, but I had a feeling. So then you were offered just such a role in The Hangover.
You just want to skip right over all about Steve. Okay.
Once again, no questions prepared.
And failure to launch. All right.
We can come back to them if you like.
Just kidding. And Yes Man. All right. And Midnight Meat Train.
Everybody has their favorites. So, I remember when I first started hearing about that film, that there was, just tremendous buzz even before it was released. But when, just to hear the sort of, the one-line description of, guys on a zany bachelor party, I mean, that in and of itself, it was hard to know what was going to be special about it. So, I mean, when you're even considering a role like that, I mean, how did you already have a sense that this was going to be a different kind of movie, that this was going to break out the way that it did?
Well, I mean, it definitely was. I didn't look at it in terms of like, was I considering the role? Can I get a job? It was more of what it was. Here's the thing. I think that I'm first of all, very lucky to make a living as an actor, be able to even be here and talk to you guys about the work that I've done is really incredible. I just don't even really understand it, but truly. But the fact that I get to work with Todd Phillips, who's the best. I mean, I haven't worked with Judd Apatow or Jay Roach, but so I really don't know what I'm talking about. But he's the best comedy director around, and he is. I mean, there's a reason Robert Downey Jr. said that he's the best director he's ever worked with. I mean, this guy is, homegrown, went to NYU, and he's an auteur to the highest degree. And if you look at his other movies, even like Starsky and Hutch, which you can say whether you like it or not, it's a very well-crafted film. And in his documentary when he started Hate,
You've
about
seen
G.G.
the
Allen.
Allen,
Oh yeah. And he's incredible. And I feel like so lucky that it's almost like, I feel like Scottie Pippen when he got to play with Jordan on the Bulls. It's like I feel like I'm around to be able to play with Todd Phillips right now. I've got to do 2 movies with this guy who's just a monster in this profession. He's wonderful.
But you bring something to the equation.
Nothing.
Also.
I don't bring anything.
I mean, you got to have. It's as much about the chemistry among those guys and the fact that
it is. But he chose us.
Right.
I mean, he said, I want to make this movie. With 3 guys that nobody knows except for the guy from The Office and maybe the asshole from Wedding Crashers. Zach had to audition for that role, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And he even said to Zach, he said, look, he goes, you disappear in movies. He goes, I watch you disappear. He goes, that can't happen. And it didn't. And Zach said, okay. Because it's right. I mean, if you look at Out Cold, as wonderful as his performance is in Out Cold, you don't see the genius.
Wasn't even aware he was in it.
Yeah, right, because he disappeared.
You knew Zach, or at least you'd crossed paths with him prior to this, though, right?
Yeah. I was on his show, Late World with Zach. He had a show on VH1, pre-beard. And I was there the night that it got canceled.
Yeah.
But I used to go see him do stand-up. We were both in Vancouver, and I used to watch his stand-up all the time. I always thought this guy is just, there's nobody like him. But I didn't know him then, and I didn't get to know him until we did The Hangover. And I remember I was even nervous about it because I was intimidated by him. I thought he was such a wonderful comic, and why would he, So I called him and I said, hey man, do you want to drive up to Vegas together? Just because I know we know each other, but it might be a good idea. And he said, yeah, Bradley, okay. And I'm so glad we did that. That was kind of like the beginning of, now he's I love the guy. I was just with him last night. I love him so much.
Was that drive to Vegas anything like the movie, or was it fairly conventional?
No, it was nothing like the movie. Yeah.
No boxers.
We were driving in a Prius, and I think, we went crazy and started with half a tank.
Right.
Yeah. See if we can get there. 42 miles to a gallon.
I mean, when you shoot a film like that, are you on location in Vegas the whole time? It was all.
We shot a month in LA and then a month and a half in Vegas. Thank God, because you needed that character. One of the main characters in the movie is Vegas.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'll get to Hangover Part. I'm sure we'll talk about Hangover Part 2, but Bangkok was very much the same way in it being a major character, and I felt like we didn't get to really experience Hangover Part 2 until we got to Bangkok. We had the luxury in the first one, we were shot in Vegas and then LA. So by the time we got to LA, we were like, oh, we know we have the grittiness in our pores.
Right.
But when we got to Bangkok, we thought, oh my God, we had no idea what the hell this place is about. Yeah.
The Globe Trekker experience did not come in handy, or?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. Well, I never went to Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when a film like this is a runaway success, I mean, does it immediately, create new opportunities for you, or are there people that say, well, what made it a hit was the gags or something about the ineffable zeitgeist. It's not the cast members.
No, I mean, look, whenever you're part of a movie that's that, financially lucrative, everybody benefits from it, and certainly the three of us benefited from it in different ways. I mean, Ed went on to make Cedar Rapids, and Zachy made Due Date, and then I made the A-Team, and we all got to do things.
Yeah.
And then, I never would have been able to get Limitless if I wasn't a part of the Hangover. I don't think Relativity would have been able to say or sell it off foreign before, I just don't think so. That said, it is an ensemble, and you are known as like being a guy who does comedy. It's interesting. You just have to keep diversifying.
Yeah. So now you're not about to be seen in Limitless, which is coming this Friday, right?
Yeah.
And you play a man who has much more positive reaction to mysterious substances than in Hangover. If you want to give a little background on the character, and then we'll.
Sure. It's based on a book by Alan Glynn that was previously titled The Dark Fields that he wrote in 2001, and then Leslie Dixon, who was primarily, I'm not familiar with everything she's written, but known for Mrs. Doubtfire and Hairspray. She wrote this very dark thriller that just read like a house on fire. I mean, just an amazing read, and it was around for I think about 9 or 10 years. Heath Ledger was attached to do it originally, I think, and then Shia LaBeouf was going to do it. And then he dropped out to do Wall Street, so the role became available. And I read it, and I just tried to jockey in any way I could to get to meet the director, who was Neil Berger, who was attached to it, who did The Illusionist. I don't know if you guys saw that, but wonderful director. And basically, it's about this guy Eddie Mora, who's a down-and-out writer, and it was cool when he was, 25 and he had a book contract and living in the East Village, but now he's 35. And his girlfriend, on the day that we meet him, his girlfriend breaks up with him. He's about to get evicted from his apartment. He runs into his ex-wife's brother, who he used to hang out with, who was asking about him. He's grabbing a drink with him, and he says, "How you doing?" "Well, how's that book coming along?" And I haven't written anything. So he gives him this drug. He said it's FDA approved. That'll help him focus. That it actually opens up all of his brain. And he just thinks, well, that's crazy, but whatever. I got nothing to lose. Takes it, and lo and behold, it actually does. Change the synapses in his brain so that he can actually use all of his neurological potential. So it's this really cool concept that the hook of the movie is, what would you do if you could take a pill that can open up all of your brain? And if we succeed, if the movie succeeds, it's believable. And because of that, I mean, you would hopefully leave the theater going, it's not that far away from being probable, given the sort of the medications that we have. Is this a decade or 2 decades away?
Yeah. I want to get into a little bit of that.
You want me to keep explaining it?
No,
as if I'm telling the whole movie? Okay, so page 2. Sorry.
That's cool.
Got really lost in the plot of that movie and the backstory of how it was. Yeah. Anyway.
Is there some satisfaction in letting yourself go to seed a little bit to play the at least the pre NZT kind of long-haired version of Eddie?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we called him Old Eddie. We would love when they'd wheel out the wig. Get very excited.
Is that a wig?
It was a wig.
Oh, wow.
It's an incredible wig. Yeah, wasn't it? I mean, I usually in those movies, especially like period movies, you get, especially for men, you could just always tell it's a wig. Yeah. But that one, the guy who made it is a German guy in Los Angeles. What's his name?
Can't help you.
Sorry. Earl. Can't believe I don't remember his name. We could fix it in post. Yeah. And he would take little bits of my hair when he made it. But the great thing about it, I could like put my hands through it and everything with the wig, which was great. Yeah, we were talking about the wig. I loved to play him.
Yeah.
And I remember he rapped like 3 days before a new Eddie rapped. We just split it up. And I remember the crew and I were all very sad that old Eddie was gone. Because it was fun. There was just the way that it was filmed, it was a little looser. And
right.
Eddie on NZT was also a lot of fun, and I had to pretend I could speak all these languages. And the way he spoke, the way Leslie wrote it, there was no room for or a stutter, nothing.
Yeah, you've really got to have all that.
Perfect. And that was wonderfully challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to have all that dialogue down.
Down. Oh yeah.
Reciting it as if it's coming like right from your brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also Neil shot all that stuff really in one take, meaning that he never cut, because he really wanted to just see Eddie on frame in the frame, just just pouring out this stuff. And yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, is there a strategy to those scenes beyond just got to know my dialogue and got to really have it at my fingertips? Are there any techniques or mnemonic devices, or it's just really just being on point that day when you do it?
No, that's it.
Okay.
No. There's I mean, look, I had to do a lot of preparation for this, just because I had to make things real for myself or believable, so then that you would watch it and believe it. And so that, I couldn't really read any sort of reading up on like neurological, the way the brain works. I wouldn't have been able to incorporate that organically into anything I could act.
Right.
So I had to figure out for me what would make me believe something, which was completely different, but the reaction, the effect would be that you seeing it could possibly link it to the imaginary circumstances of a guy being on this drug that has been explained to you.
Right.
So I was just able to make those connections. And then thank God I did my homework. Thank God I did my homework, because every day I showed up, it was kind of effortless, I gotta say. I'd already had all the dialogue memorized. I'd already done my work, and it was a real testament to that, because when Robert De Niro showed up for 2 weeks, and if I wasn't prepared, forget it. But I was prepared.
Yeah.
And because of that, it was effortless.
Right. So, I mean, how do you is it just a fake, a confidence you have to fake in those moments, or do you, to when you do have to kind of step to him and you?
No, you mean because he's who he is?
Yeah.
No, not at all. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I was so it was the easiest time I ever had acting. Easiest time ever. So much so that when I executive produced it, so it was always around, and for the post-production, I've seen the movie 800 times, and my memory of my scenes with Robert De Niro are such that I don't really remember what I was doing. It was just talking to him, and so I thought when I watched it, I was actually reacting, but I wasn't aware of that I was reacting, because he's so real, he's so grounded, and he's just talking to you, that he just creates this environment that is real and believable for whoever's acting with him. And so my experience was heaven. I mean, that's the best possible scenario you could ever have in an imaginary circumstance of telling a story in a film.
Do you have to get his permission in advance to call him a bitch? Do you have to clear that with him?
No. Because let's make it clear, I wasn't calling Robert De Niro a bitch.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Your character.
Or saying that he was my bitch.
Right.
I was Carl Van Loon.
Right.
Not anymore. Make that very clear.
Right. Do you feel like
Robert De Niro will never be my bitch. For the record.
Is there a feeling that there's a little more at stake for you with a movie like this? This is a real first opportunity to kind of prove yourself as as a leading man and a guy very much carrying a film.
Yeah. No, it's true. There's certain, I remember doing that play and thinking, you know what? If I don't succeed at this, it has consequences. There are certain things that happen. I was talking about that in the X studio, that there are certain moments in your life where you kind of, if it goes either way, it's going to really change stuff. And, this is a shot, and if studios or a director is going to want to hold the narrative upon me playing a character that, drives it for an hour and 42 minutes, a lot of that will be based on how they feel successful how successful this movie it was.
Well, it's a great showcase for you.
So-
You get to really, you get to show a wide range of personas and abilities. So.
Oh, thank you.
And whatever happens after this, you've got Hangover Part 2 coming immediately after. It feels just like as somebody on the outside looking in that you guys have, you're exercising a little more secrecy in the run up to this in terms of, what's being shown or what, are you allowed to talk at all about what's...
Well, the only reason why it's more secretive is because we could have told the whole plot the first movie and no one would have cared. Mike Tyson's in the movie. Right. Okay, what's it called?
Right.
Hangover. Great. No, it's only because so much of comedy is about the reveal. It's just about one. There's only secrecy because we want people to enjoy the movie, and a lot of the comedy is about the reveal. So, what a shame it would be if you knew all that stuff beforehand.
Yeah. There's been so much talk already, though, of the cameos, who's in, who's not in.
It's all true.
Bill Clinton, true?
Huge role.
Okay.
Yeah. We lose Bill Clinton.
Right.
That's what happens. He's great in the movie.
There was also talk at one point, and I don't know if this is something you want to get into, but that Mel Gibson was at one point going.
Don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Is Tyson coming back?
Tyson's back.
Okay. The monkey's in it.
The drug dealing monkey's in it. Who I worked with on Failure to Launch.
Right.
Yeah, second time we've worked together. They started talking about Hangover 2 before Hangover 1 came out. Warner Brothers saw a version of it and they got so excited. They thought, this is a marketable franchise. We'd love to actually start the holding deal for the writers. So we felt very confident by that. That was a wonderful gesture on Warner Brothers' part. And so we started to sort of throw around ideas because we had such a great experience together. So it was only thrilling to even conceive of the idea of what happens to these guys after this day, this 48 hours or 27 hours. And so no, it was never met with any trepidation at all. Now that it's in the can, I have to say that I'm so excited about it. So excited about it. I mean, just watching that, I just can't. I want to tell you guys, what do you hear with the monkey and the thing? It's just Mike Tyson's tattoo on Ed's face.
One more round of applause for
Thank
Bradley
you.
Cooper. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you.